Do you have a broom? Most of us have a broom. What about emotional broom? What is that? Stay tuned and you will find out about how we can use or how we utilize our emotional brooms. Maybe not in the best way. What about understanding that your physical health connects to your mental health? Ever had a pain and just didn't know where that pain came from? Or even a physical condition that manifests, but there was not any pre-existing conditions or precursors. Stay tuned. Our guest will be here to share her mental health journey that encompasses her physical health. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in. You may be on your lunch break or you may just be taking a break, and join us for Am I Crazy with LaShasta Bell. Right after a quick little break, we are going to introduce our guest to you, Anetra Williams, the mother of 3, pursuing her degree in family marriage counseling. And she's here to tell her story. So make sure you tune in and come back right after the break. Do you have a story to tell? Wait. We all have a story to tell. If you are ready to tell your story as it relates to your mental health and the journey, the struggle, the management, the awareness, the lack thereof, we want you at Am I Crazy with LaShasta Bell. And what about sponsorship? Oh, thanks for asking. Because there's also the opportunity for sponsorship. Do you have a product? Do you have an event that you want to shout to the world? If so, check out our sponsorship. Same place as the guest form. See you soon. We offer face-to-face and virtual counseling throughout the state of Texas. www.ichoosemecounseling.com.
Promoting a higher standard of life and style through the art of lifestyle with Sabrina Cross.
Welcome back. Thank you so much, Anetra, for joining us today. I'm so excited to be here with you and for you to be able to have the opportunity to share your story with our audience and your mental health journey. So, how did you get to the space in life that you are?
Well, I guess we can just go with the title, Am I Crazy? That's an interesting title, Am I Crazy? Because literally, that's how I got here. So you and I, we've been knowing each other for quite some while. I used to work with your mom, and she is definitely a praying person. And at that time, I was just living life, and she was just always trying to get me to go to church. And that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do other things. And so one night, I was in a nightclub, and I really felt the presence of God, and I heard him clearly saying, like, what are you doing here? This is not where you belong. I was out there living my life with the drug dealers. That was my go-to because my father was not in my life. So when they say looking for love in all the wrong places, that's what I was doing. The fatter his pockets, the more I was interested. And so that was my life. That's what I wanted to do. But at the same time, I was conflicted because that's not how I was raised. And so it was like a tug of war, the streets, the church, the streets, the church. So I settled down. I got married. I had my second son. And really after I had him, I don't think it was postpartum, but I felt like something just wasn't right. And so I went to go and see a therapist for the very first time because that is not something that was ever talked about in my family. Like, go to church, pray, it's gonna be fine. We like to sweep things underneath the rug, but I had swept so many things under the rug to where I was just tripping over everything because it was just piling up. You know, it was too many skeletons, and the closet door just bust wide open. And so by the time I finished talking to this lady, because I was like, okay, you know, you go and do your 10 little sessions and you're good and everything is going to be fine. And so needless to say, 3 years later, 3 years later, I was seriously telling her that, okay, we need to take a break because I wasn't planning on being here this long.
So you went for 10.
I went for 10 sessions.
And 3 years later,
3 years later,
you ready to break up with your therapist?
I divorced my therapist. I told her, okay, it's not you, it's me. I need space.
I need space. How did your family receive, because like you said, it's not talked about in our families, and oftentimes we have that what goes on in this house stays in this house, and like you mentioned, you sweep so many things under the rug that literally you're tripping over the trauma and the drama in your life. How did your family receive you being in therapy from 10 sessions to 3 years?
Really, I think my family was still in denial because they really didn't say anything. They were like, oh, okay, well, you all right? You know, I guess they thought I was dying or something. I was like, okay, I'm seeing a therapist. And they was like, okay, like, you need something? You good? I'm like,
you gonna make it?
Yeah, I'm like, if I had a bunch of money, I would give all y'all like a year's supply worth of therapy. I'm like, I'm good. It's helping me to see that maybe we got some things that we need to work out.
All of us,
like together.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was their response. I mean, I don't want to call it a typical response, but sometimes other people are just not ready.
Gotcha. So they were like neutral.
Right.
Almost not even knowing what to say. Almost when we think about it, when someone dies, people go, "You okay? You all right? How you doing?" Yeah. They really don't know what to say, and it's so uncomfortable and awkward for them, and they're not the one experiencing it, but just to see a loved one experiencing it, that they almost play a neutral ground. So it sounds like that's what happened with your family, that they were just kind of neutral and didn't really know how to address your being in therapy.
This is true because what you just said, you know, when a family member goes to therapy, then at some point the family is going to be discussed. And I think that was part of the problem because it's like, oh, well, if she talking about this, then that means, you know, so I think me getting uncomfortable, which was necessary, made them uncomfortable, but they weren't ready. And they're still not, and that's okay.
We all have our journey, and that's the space that we're here cultivating to let our audience know that we do all have our journey, and it looks different, and it's not about the journey, it's about how we address it.
True.
So as you're going through your process, you're 3 years into therapy, kind of considering divorcing your therapist, what's happening in life around you as you're going through the therapeutic process? What's going on that kept you there from the 10 sessions to 3 years?
Looking back, I would have to say I thought I was doing the work, and I did a little bit, but now at the place in life where I am now, I realized that I was just kind of telling her what she wanted to hear and what I felt like I needed to say. So I can't really say that I was being authentic. So I'm still in therapy now, but I am with a spiritual advisor.
Okay. And so basically what you're saying is that sometimes we can enter therapy, but still be guarded.
Yes.
Still have the mask on. Mm-hmm. And that it takes a intentional behavior and awareness to really strip yourself in the therapeutic process, to really trust that you're in a safe place. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. And so you mentioned being with a spiritual advisor now, completing and going through your therapeutic process. What's that like for you compared to, if we could even say, let's compare it to therapy, if it could be a comparison, or maybe it's not even a comparison, but what brings you comfort in the spiritual guidance piece?
Um, First of all, the person, and she doesn't allow me to. She's funny. She has this little thing. She knows when I'm being guarded, and so she's just like, okay. And I'm like, what does that mean? And she's like, well, I'm just saying. And that right there can just be like, you know, she has a way of making you dig deeper without her actually just saying, like, let's talk about that. You know, as therapists, we're like, let's talk about that. How does that make you feel? But just her and her body language and the way, you know, she can read me, and it just draws it out. And so, you know, I'll tell her about just a life experience, and what I've learned from that is trauma, 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 trauma. I had so much trauma, and it was just buried, just so deep. And I guess that's why I wasn't able to get out of traditional therapy what I needed to, because I just wasn't ready to you know, relive all that. But I feel like you know, when you're dealing with things from a spiritual perspective, that just opens up a whole nother can of worms. And so it was just time. It was just time. You know, like when a person has a heart attack, I honestly believe that that person's heart attacked them. And so, you know, I'm a healthy person. As you can see, therapy, my therapy is in the gym. And I've been doing this for almost 3 years. But this time, last year, I was just, I don't know, I was just like a hamster on the little wheel. You know, I was going to the gym every morning. I used to get up. I was in the gym at 4:30 every morning. And I was just, you know, going in, just doing my thing. But something just felt off. But I was still going, and I was telling my trainer, I'm like, I'm just tired. But what I didn't realize is when I said I was tired, it wasn't physical. I was getting mentally exhausted, and I didn't know that. And I was spiritually exhausted.
What do you feel like was weighing on you to create this mental exhaustion?
Just various things that was going on in my life. And, you know, I did what I learned how to do, my coping mechanism. I just swept. I started to do that, sweeping it under the rug, like it'll be okay. I figured, you know, I'm in school, I'm married, I have kids, this is what I'm supposed to do. You know, we get caught up in that superwoman. But then I was like, I don't want to be, who said I wanted to be superwoman? Because that's not a title that I want to claim. And so, 2 days before my 47th birthday, I woke up just like normal, and I didn't realize that that day was not going to be normal. And so I spent the night in my mother's house, because that's something I would usually do over my spring break. And I got up, coming out of the restroom, and the right side of my body just went completely numb. I couldn't feel anything. And all I could do was look across and see my daughter, and that's all I could see.
Promoting a higher standard of life and style through the art of lifestyle with Sabrina Cross.
Growing up, young women find themselves at an age where they start to notice their body is going through changes. With these changes, there may come stages of fear and being uncomfortable. We are here to make that transition as positive as possible. If you would like to throw your own personal glow-up party for your young queen, contact us quickly as slots are filling up. We hope to see you soon. And remember, we'll make you glow up. All you have to do is show up.
So I had to find a way, while everything was shutting down, I had to find a way to get out of the room and try to make it to the front of my mother's house so that they could see me and see that something is not right. And so some of it is still a blur, but, you know, I remember hearing everything that was going on. And the last words that I heard as I was going into the hospital, they were saying, we have a stroke victim. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, I'm like, well, who having a stroke? Mind you, I still can't talk, but I'm like, well, who having a stroke?
Right, where they at?
You know, all these doctors, they're rushing in and they talking, they asking me, you know, move this and move that. And I couldn't. Mm-hmm. I couldn't. And so, you know, finally I started to get some feeling again in my right hand and my, you know, the right part of my body. But then they told me to, they're like, well, lift up your right leg. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm doing it. Y'all don't see it? And they're like, no, you're not.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it. Like, they're like, you know, so they're like, do you feel this? And I'm like, no. And they started going up higher. Do you feel that? And I'm like, no. So all I knew is that, you know, okay, I can't die because I got too many things to do. Mm. This is not it, you know. And so I'm like, it's almost my birthday. So I was like, well, Jesus, I love you, but I'm not ready to see you. So, you know, if we could just put this on hold.
Can I see 47?
Yeah. And so I stayed in the hospital a few days. They ran test after test after test. And everything was normal. Mm-hmm. And the neurologist, you know, that's when COVID was just starting. So you couldn't go into the doctor's office. So we had it, you know, virtual. And he told me, he said, you know, I can only treat you for neurological issues. He said, but I will tell you that whatever it is that's on your mind, he's like, you need to let it go.
Oh, that gave me chills. Mm-hmm. So your physical health was impacted to the point that you lost ability in part of your body, and the neurologist delivers the message. Mm-hmm. You got to check in with your mental health.
Yeah. He's like, whatever's going on, you got to let it go.
How did you let it go? Or have you let it go?
I have let it go. And if 2020 hasn't, you know, shown me anything else besides letting it go, it's like I only have one life to live. And it's not going to make everybody happy, but that's not the goal. The goal is not to make everybody happy. The goal is to make me happy. And what I had to learn is my happiness does not come from other people. You know, I cleared out enough space in myself so that I can go within myself to know that everything that I already needed was already in there. It was just so much pain and hurt, and, you know, we have sexual abuse. You know, I experienced that before I was 8 years old. You know, I have, like I said, abandonment issues. My father was not in my life, but I was always trying to find him in other people. You know, I lost my biological mother when I was 4. So I didn't have that, even though I was raised by my great-grandmother. It's a difference. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, you want your mama. You know, I want to know, what does her voice sound like? What does her hands feel like? What is it? I wanted for her to hold me when I was, you know, needed to be held. And I didn't have that. So just all that stuff, it just came in a nice big old box on the 47th birthday. And it's like, okay, ta-da, here it is. Just a big old explosion of all that. And so that's what happened.
So, and wow, that is a lot of loss of innocence, biological parents, you know, the sense of belonging. Mm-hmm. So there was so much grief that could have taken place in mourning, but what I'm hearing you say is that you stuff, and until it came to the point that it manifested itself physically.
Yes.
We see you here, though. We see you here looking fine as wine, you know, amazing. So how did we go from the space of this just imploded, all of the trauma that had not been addressed, dropped in my lap to the point that physically my body is not well because mentally I'm not well, to the place that your shirt says therapy with some weights. So I'm curious. So from that 47th, 2 days before your 47th birthday, until where we see you right now today, what has that journey been like?
My trainer is very patient, and what he does not realize is that he is a very gifted man. He's just so full of empathy, and he is so motivating. He's very encouraging, and he just doesn't realize the power of his words. And, you know, sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to do this. And he's like, but why not? And I'm like, well, I'm just not feeling this today. And he was like, well, you said that yesterday and we got it done. And so, you know, by the time he's done with that spiel, then I'm already 5 minutes on the treadmill, and he's just, you know, moving me from one thing to the next without me even realizing it. And so he did take it easy on me for just a little bit, because I'm like, I was trying to play the little card. I was like, you know, I had a stroke, right?
Let me slide you this card.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, I had a stroke, right? He's like, okay, well, you know, then we won't do 250 today. How about we just do 135? And I'm like, yeah.
It's still a lot, though.
I'm like, okay. So, you know, he does not let me quit. He has a sign at the gym, and it says, just don't quit. Mm-hmm. And so that is my therapy. I lost my aunt last year to cancer, and we was very close. And it's almost as if I could feel her slipping away, because I talked to her that night, and I was like, you know, you don't sound too good. You need to take a treatment. She's like, I already did. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, I just couldn't sleep. And I wanted to go to my mom's house, and that's where she was. And something was just like, you know, but I was like, no, it's too early in the morning. And so I waited, and then about 3 hours later, they called and said that she had passed away. And we was very close. And so, you know, I took the initiative, and we made the arrangements, and I had her buried and all that. And after that, I went to the gym. And I told my trainer, I was like, I just need to work it out.
Good.
I just need to work it out.
It's amazing hearing how you have transformed your own mindset and found what works for you on your mental health journey. And it's not to negate any space. It's like you said, you went to therapy, you'd worked it out, you got the skills that you needed for that period in time in life. Then you have your spirituality and that spiritual coaching that takes place and accountability. Mm-hmm. So it's an external thing that takes place, but then internally, you shared about like, okay, I had to make space for my happiness. I had to cultivate it, and then to be able to use the very thing that tried to say it's time for you to go, which is your physical health. Mm-hmm. You've now used that to build up your mental health and to support you on your mental health journey. I so appreciate you being here. And who would have known, you know, what 20, maybe 30 something years later, that this would be our journey, sitting here sharing with the audience how mental health is just valuable, and we can no longer sweep it under the rug.
No, we can't.
So I so appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So if there was one thing that you could leave with our audience, what would it be?
I think the one thing that I would like to leave with the audience is everything that you need, you already have.
Wow, that's good. That's good stuff. Thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Anetra shared with us her journey and all that encompassed her life story up until the point where she is right now today. Some of the things that I want to highlight from the segment is understanding grief and trauma, mourning, and how our physical health connects with our mental health. So if we were to take the two words, grief and mourning, sometimes we use them interchangeably, but they actually have two different meanings. Grief is what happens inside, internally, in our psyche, psychologically, how we feel and think about the loss that we experience. And from what Anetra shared, you guys know that part of her grieving was not to grieve, was to sweep it under the rug, to disregard it, to bypass it by any means necessary. Mourning is what happens externally. So some may cry, some may scream, some may yell, some may sit quietly. And one thing that we were able to recognize in Anetra's story is the gym was her outlet. Outside of therapy and spiritual leadership, she would go and work out. And that was her way of mourning, her way of dealing with the grief that she was experiencing. And I know you may go, well, how does that help? How does working out help? Well, research has shown, and we've known for years, that when we exercise, it improves our mental health. Exercise ranks among the highest antidepressants, and that's up against medication. When we are physically moving, we are actually allowing chemicals in our brain to be released that helps to balance out our mood and helps to stabilize our emotions. So if you are experiencing any loss, which many of us have, we're in a pandemic. We've all experienced some type of loss in 2020, leading up to 2021. Be sure to acknowledge internally your grief process and externally your mourning process, so that you are not using your emotional broom to sweep things under the rug. Thanks for watching.